Welcome everybody to Change Itself. If you are the first time logging in or checking us out, we're really happy to have you on board. And if you're a return follower and you're into the conversation that we've been having for the past little while, thank you for being dedicated to our cause and listening in. And hopefully you got a lot of great insights. Eric and I, hey Eric, how you doing?
Good, man. You?
Good. We've got a great episode today, and it's actually pretty exciting because I like to have firsts, and today we have a first where it's an early guest that we've had on our show early in our podcasting or change itself journey with Jason Fearnow, and he's here as a return guest, and we're going to do some nice follow up questions and unpack what his world's been over the past couple of years, and it's pretty exciting to have this opportunity with Jason. Welcome aboard, Jason.
Hey, man. Thanks, Gus. Appreciate it. Eric, good to see you.
See you too.
Yeah, thanks, man. I didn't know I was the first repeat guest, so I'm particularly stoked about that and honored. So I appreciate you guys having me back on the show.
Great to have you. I mean, so much has happened over the past couple of years. I mean, it's been a little over 2 years since we last had you on our show, and we had a lot of great conversations about mining Mavericks and the journey that you're on, and having all the discussions that were going on around capital projects and how to unpack that situation a little bit and see what we can do to tackle the requirements of the industry. And mining is very exciting, and there's a lot of demand overall. And we know that what we used to always do, we needed to tweak a little to perform at our peak. And looking forward to hearing a little bit more. Maybe you can unpack a little bit of that. How have the mining Mavericks been since we last connected?
Yeah, good. So we did put the Mavericks recording on hold for a bit, purely because of bandwidth. Although we're starting to take a little bit of a heat from our fans because we're not putting out as much content as we used to. But the Maverick energy is well and good and alive. So I think we've all kind of dispersed into our own place within the industry and are causing or making some noise elsewhere.
No, it's good to hear. And hey, if there's noise is good, right? If they're beating on your door for more information, you've reached a good audience.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. It's actually really encouraging. A couple of years ago, I'm still frustrated, but I was really frustrated with our industry because from a capital project space standpoint, we make a lot of the same mistakes over and over again. And that was the impetus for the Mavericks. Like, what is an avenue that we can get out to the world, different ways of thinking, doing things differently. And it worked really well. But at the time, I was discouraged because I didn't think there was a lot of conversations going on around what we could do better. And what I've really noticed over the course of the past couple of years since being on the show last time is there are a lot of pockets of folks and groups and organizations that are frustrated as well and want to do things differently. And for me, that's really encouraging. So I'm happy to say that, and I'm happy to see that.
So Jason, just on that topic is
sure.
What I'm recalling from our previous conversation, it's a little bit controversial for some people to hear somebody start to challenge some of the ways around capital projects and some of the mistakes that are being made. In those pockets, what are some of the actions that you're seeing people take? So there's conversation going on, but not much change will happen until things start changing and there's an actions taken. So I'm wondering if you've seen anything cool out there that maybe people would benefit from hearing.
Yeah, sure. Good question. I think there's a couple of things there, Eric. The first is I saw a group that got launched within the last month. And the group's focus is kind of changing the face of mining and the messaging and the marketing around mining. So there's a group of individuals that are coming together saying, mining doesn't have a good marketing engine. How can we get ourselves out from within the industry to people that are outside so we can get some outside ideas looking in? And this group is starting to gain momentum and has some really progressive, open-minded individuals that are leading the effort. but also that are involved in the conversation. So that for me is particularly exciting. And I'm happy to participate in that group. Actually, I should pull you guys in because you would be you'd fit right in. But then the other thing is that what I'm seeing that's also really encouraging is we know within mining there's a skills gap. There's definitely a skills gap. There's a lot of individuals that have historically been in our industry that are baby boomers. And the baby boomers had a particular methodology for how they executed capital projects. Some of it good, some of it bad. But then there was a big gap between the baby boomers and some of the millennials, early millennials. And what's happening now is the millennials are stepping into leadership positions. So instead of barking up a tree, this is how we should do it, to somebody that's been doing it for 30, 40 years one way, we're now having conversations with people that are of our generation that are like, look, we don't want to make the same mistakes. What can we do differently? And these individuals, these people are moving within the ranks of mining companies. And because of that, they have the ability to influence change and to do things differently. So I'm seeing a turnover in thought process and execution. And as a result of that, people are starting to do things different than they were before and in a really positive light. So I'm personally really excited about that aspect of it.
Mining companies around the world rely on Cal Tire's Mining Tire Group for innovative tire management and supply. Whether they're making their work safer and more efficient, reducing total cost of ownership, or helping customers improve sustainability, Cal Tire unlocks opportunity and drives positive change. To learn about their award-winning repair technology, tire management tools, recycling solution, and TOMS, their productivity-driven tire and operations management system, visit them at caltiremining.com. ZeroNox is leading the electrification of off-highway commercial and industrial vehicles. They provide a platform for clean energy technology to get to market through powertrain solutions, development partnerships, and electrification kit solutions for conversions. Reduce carbon emissions without diminishing vehicle performance or being restricted by high costs. Partner with ZeroNox, like many of the world's leading OEMs, as they solve challenges across multiple continents with their cleaner and higher-performing technology. ZeroNox solutions are designed and engineered in America with offices in Porterville, California. Learn more at zeronox.com. Sabina Equipment supplies new and used mining equipment around the world, from placer to underground to ore processing plants. They have gold concentrating tables, trommels, and mineral jigs in stock now to take advantage of the high gold prices. You can visit them at sabinaequipment.com, where you will find more equipment every day.
It is encouraging, and I mean, I'll also say that it's I'll vouch for that marketing piece, and I'd be glad to join in if you have me. But even on our side, like, we've been onboarding some people on our team, and that have never been exposed to mining whatsoever, other than just knowing that it exists. That's pretty much all they know. And then we expose them to the things that we're doing with our mining clients and the contracts that we have. They're like, mining is really cool. Like, there is so much stuff that goes on in mining, and they're still envisioning, like, the pickaxe stuff, right? Like, they're still envisioning the canary and the candle and the candlelight. Right. Like, they still have that old picture. So a revamp of marketing is something that's definitely required. And I'm happy to hear that there's groups out there that are challenging that. And I know there's a group in Canada doing this as well with This Is Mining. Part of the OMA. But it's really cool to see some of the changes for sure. Have you seen, as a result of it, have you seen some impactful results over the past couple of years when it comes to projects in general, and how, like, maybe the spectrum at which we were dealing with a few years ago is starting to shrink from a delivery and cost standpoint? Or
I think from a delivery standpoint, yes. In pockets, it's definitely within pockets. First of all, I'm super happy to hear that you're bringing folks in from outside of mining. I personally believe that's what we need. We need to get outside of our sphere of influence and start taking in other industries' ideas. What has tech done that works? What has pharma done that works? What have even oil and gas, for that matter? So I'm really encouraged to hear that you guys are bringing folks in that don't know mining instinctually or historically. That's cool.
Created and designed by industry leaders with decades of frontline experience, Sophie is a platform that brings workers home every day. Give your workforce the communication tools they need on the job to do it safely and productively. Visit Sophie.com today to discover how you can leverage Sophie to increase efficiencies, mitigate risk, and optimize collaboration. Safer, smarter, Sophie. Technica Mining is a premier underground mining and construction contractor. They stand for delivering quality project work on time and on budget through innovative thinking. Their excellent safety record, experienced workforce, and large equipment fleet will guarantee the timely completion of all your project needs. Trusted by the world's leading mining companies, Technica Mining has over 20 years of experience in mine construction, development, and production. Contact Technica Mining to take your next mining project to the next level. Visit them at technicamining.com.
It's cool to be able to pay it forward, because I got brought into the mining space later in my career as well. So like I came from tech, sold everything, picked up a jackleg and a stoper, started mining, and then we're back in tech. So it's fun to bring more people in, but also to get it, a really good diverse thought process as well. Because what we've noticed as well is that there are some definite goals that we had, and that leads into some of the questions that I had for you as well, is that we had definite goals and strategies on how to get there. And then fast forward a few years, we kind of got there, but better. And it really, really shifted. So it's almost like I say in technology, like one feature will drive 3 or 4 or 5 or 13 more features. And it's the same thing when you implement something and you're anticipating a certain result, and then that result ends up booming several other results that are streaming in a positive light that you didn't even see happen. Have you seen any of that where you got that positive consequence of certain actions?
Yeah. It's a good question. And the first thing that comes to my mind is I can't remember if we talked about this or not last time, but it's a concept that I'm seeing getting a lot of momentum, and that's around independent project delivery, collaborative agreements, more integration, salt and pepper. And what I mean by that is traditionally within mining and metals, there's a particular methodology for executing. A mining company, they're not constructors, so they would go to the market, they would go to big engineering and construction firms. You hear them referred to as EPCMs all of the time. And the reason they're referred to that is because that was the model. There's an EPCM model where the mining company outsources the vast majority of the project to a large multinational engineering firm, engineering and construction. They execute. And then at the end of the day, they hand the project effectively, or the asset, back to the owner. And that's what we've done for years, decades. The problem is that statistically, we don't have a great track record. So what has happened is that owners are saying, wait, I can't rely on these EPCM firms to execute for me. It's too costly. What do we do? So what they've started saying is like, okay, we've got some good people, they've got some good people. Let's take the best in breed of both of our teams, and we'll create a one team type environment. Whereas before it was really segregated and it was kind of this us versus them. You got big brother, little brother beating up on each other. Now in certain pockets, what you're seeing is owners collaborating with contractors and playing in the same sandbox. What is fantastic about that is the results. So normally we were blown out by 43% or more 80% of the time. With the collaborative projects, you don't have that same result. You're getting far better results at the end of the day with less cost increase, less schedule delays, and better overall quality. So that right there is a huge shift that has really gotten legs over the course of the last few years.
See any changes in operating costs? Like, because as we know, there's a way that you do things in project state, and then there's disciplines that you follow and things like that, because it's a very finite time. You don't have really a whole lot of time to mess around. You got to deliver the project on time. And then you hand over the keys, like in the traditional model, you hand over the keys of the project to operations.
Mhm.
and then it's almost like a new restart, right? And then
Totally.
so then all of the great ways or all of the specific ways that drafted the success of the property to date kind of get revamped to bring it back to the way that they've always operated. Have you seen this collaboration now completely transform how they do long-term operations as a result? Or
What I can speak to is operational readiness and turnover. I don't spend a lot of my energy in operations, but I do see the transition from projects into operations. In the EPCM model, the traditional model, a lot of times it was just like, okay, we're done. We'll toss the keys over the fence. The owners wanted to kick the contractors off because they were costing them money, and the operators just wanted to run the plant. That's a bad way to transition. What has happened with this model is because there's a more significant owner involvement throughout the life cycle of the project, there's more emphasis put on operational readiness. Like, how are we going to execute this thing? How are we going to operate this thing once we're done? So there's more energy put on that seamless transition. And then I even see that contractors are continuing a little bit longer into operations to make sure that all of the hiccups are kind of sorted out. So it's a bit more of a blended, elongated handover instead of throwing the keys over the fence, which, you know, is an improvement.
awesome. Eric, have you seen any of this this kind of activity as well? I know there's been a lot of changes in your world when it comes to projects overall.
Yeah, there has been, especially maybe outside the Sudbury Basin, where you got your big two, and they've got some pretty robust systems in place as to how projects get rolled out and the difference between the operating and capital projects. But yeah, we're seeing a few where we're engaged in different tendering processes where it's directly with the owner or a small team that the owners put together and providing proposals. And we're seeing where they're working with multiple contractors and looking at different options, and then eventually going to select the option that they would like to proceed with. Which, I mean, when you start thinking about the traditional EPCM model, where you've got an owner's team, and then the engineering, teams got their own team. There is 3 or 4, I'll use, because I'm in health, safety, environment training. There's 3 or 4 different people, and sometimes it's multiple people per team doing the same job. So I've got to oversee the health and safety systems for my, our organization. And then there's somebody overseeing it from the engineering team that's, either telling me that I got to do their system plus holding me to account on my system. And then there's an owner's team member who's doing the same thing, that's overseeing the EPCM, contractor companies, safety personnel, who's then overseeing our safety personnel. And then there's like different directives coming down, and then managing that change, just the sheer volume of changes and conversations and communication, like it makes it impossible sometimes to achieve the desired outcome. And all everybody wants is this project to finish on time, budget, schedule, and not hurt anybody. Like, that's, everybody wants the same thing, but ultimately your objectives and your incentives are conflicting, and you're not getting that result that everybody's after. So yeah, definitely seeing some changes coming down in that realm and world, which is exciting. Like, we're not on one at this point, but we're certainly at the table talking to different people and in any early stage of these projects. So excited for the future.
So Jason, last time we connected, we also talked about a lot of the initiatives that you had on the go, and knowing you a little bit, you're probably not slowing down on initiatives. What's new and exciting based on what you've learned over the past couple of years, and what's your next platform? What are you springboarding off these days?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that one of the areas of focus for me personally, first I want to answer that, but I want to say to Eric, within Sudbury, I can tell you that I'm having conversations with mining companies that want to do things differently. So there is a impetus for change within Sudbury specifically. So I hear what you're saying, and I know that there is kind of a change in narrative, at least in certain areas. So I think that's positive. That's encouraging.
We're definitely starting to see it, but I mean, change, especially at that level, takes a long time to to fully see the impacts and the effects of it. Like you can hear it in the language people are using. That's to me my first indicator.
Sure.
There's a change there. People are using different words. And then now some of the actions are slow to follow up, but you're starting to see the actions follow the language. And then at some point it's all going to mesh together. It's fun to watch, like, you know, what's happening, but it's like, sometimes you're taking 3 steps back and then, you know, we catch ourselves and we start moving forward again. But so thank you for sharing that, because I don't think it's something that's, you know, shared or talked about publicly, but you definitely hear it in some of the language out there and even some of the tendering processes that we're seeing. So it's definitely a positive sign for sure.
I love it. I'm happy to hear that. That makes me very excited about the prospects. To answer your question, Gus, yeah, always something on the go, right? Life is an evolution. But what a focus for me is this. I believe very strongly that people build projects. That yes, you can go to an EPCM. Yes, you can have a collaboration, integrated project management team, you know, call it what you want. But at the end of the day, it comes down to people, how people behave, what incentivizes them, what motivates them, you know, how they act with other individuals. And because of that, what I've focused a lot of energy on is the human skills side of things. So soft skills. And a big part of my work right now is related to coaching and developing individuals within the project space, within the mining space, that have reached kind of a plateau within their career, and they're kind of feeling stuck, and they know that, yeah, I've got the technical skills, but I don't necessarily have the management skills or experience, or I'm not a great public speaker, or my self-confidence, you know, could be better, or, you know, dealing with things like imposter syndrome or anxiety. And therefore I'm working with folks on ways to develop those soft skills. You take charisma as an example, and people say, oh, you're either born with it or you're not. And the reality is that's not true. There are things that you can do consciously to increase your charisma. I think that's really cool. And I think that that's something that within mining, we don't spend a lot of time talking about. We don't talk about the soft skills development. We don't talk about human skills. We talk a lot about grams per ton, you know, and how to get the most out of the ore body, but we don't spend a lot of time talking about how to get the most and the best out of people. So that's a really big focus and emphasis of mine within our business, but also from a professional, personal standpoint, it's something that I find to be incredibly fulfilling.
I know we're down a similar path. We've just recently engaged with a consulting company to come deliver leadership training to our folks. And it was all about meaning and connection and the pieces that we need to understand and connect with one another to be able to motivate and find what motivates the person, or for the person to find what motivates them to get the work that, you know, ultimately everybody wants to get done in a safe and productive fashion. So that is exciting. I definitely want to pick your brain more on what you guys are doing, because it is exciting. It's a different place and something that's different. We're talking about people. It's where the rubber hits the road.
It's really encouraging to hear you say that, Eric. I would be interested in understanding how that went, you know, kind of what the result was of the training. You know, did it have an impact? Did it open people's eyes to, you know, a new way of thinking potentially? Because I think it's incumbent on us to focus on the people side if we want to get better, if we want to do things different.
It certainly did. And like the overwhelming feedback was, we need more, we want more. And so now it's building up what is the, you know, maybe the curriculum isn't the right term, but what's our journey going to look like? How do we keep this alive and well and put it into practice? And, you know, are we hearing it in the language? Are we physically seeing a difference? And I think right now we're in a kind of a quasi, we're kind of in the hangover mode after the, you know, the initial session. And then we got a booster session coming up next week or the week after. And hopefully we start to pick up some momentum. Not hopefully, we will start picking up momentum. But it's like, it's seeing and living and being a part of that change and knowing that, things are going to get better, but it's about applying it. It's being, you said it earlier, being conscious about it, right? Not just running on autopilot, but consciously thinking about applying those practices and tools, because we built these habits over our careers and our lives to be a certain way, act a certain way, speak a certain way. And then it requires us to consciously think about what we're doing to, have a better, different outcomes. So definitely be excited to share and hear what you guys are up to.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And I'm happy to hear you say that. I'm glad it was well received. I reflect on this for myself because I put so much time, effort, and energy into self-development, improvement, evolving, growing skills, trying new things now, but I didn't used to be like that. I remember 10 years ago when I was working for a major gold mining company, I had a leader that was really a progressive, open-minded individual and saw that we as a group lacked kind of some of these skills. So he brought in a trainer to teach us about emotional intelligence. And I remember at the time, like I said, I think about 10 years ago, I was like, what is this bullshit? Like, I am not listening to this. This is the dumbest crap that I've ever heard. Like, who cares about your emotions? Just think logically and do the job that needs to get done. I was so naive and so ignorant. I had no idea the impact you could have when you started to understand how you process your emotions, how other people process their emotions, and what that means in terms of being effective and communicating effectively so that you can ultimately get the result that you want. So I'm glad that it was well received, because I know, at least for me personally, the first time I heard stuff like that, I was out, man.
Well, I think it was a journey throughout it was a 1-day session for the leaders, but I mean, we've been lucky and fortunate to have had an experience before where one of our leaders brought people in and helped us open our eyes. 'Cause I've been through sessions as well where I fully blocked and have no intention in participating or learning anything new. Right? It's not, if you're there, forget it. You're not going to get anything. But the facilitator we had was fantastic, and he recognized that people were likely, where you were at the start of the day, right? And met people there. And then throughout the time of the session and throughout the session and the time together, got to build a relationship with those people and break down those walls, and left them feeling like, he connected with them and they could connect with anybody at that point. And it was super cool to see. And so it's hard for people to not, engage at that point or connect with their own meaning, what was meaningful for them, which is really what I took away from that one. It was freaking awesome.
No, that's really impressive, man. I'd love to understand and know which group you're talking about, who the facilitator was, because it's tough to do that. It's tough to get people to shift when they've got a certain mindset that I'm here because I have to, not because I want to. It's hard to get people to process and digest information. So kudos to them. But I'm also happy to hear that it was a good session for you guys.
Right, almost. Thanks. What else is new? I heard you talking earlier about before the show, we were talking about maybe an article you're writing.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I've been fortunate enough. Carly Leonida from the Intelligent Miner has asked me to come back. So another repeat guest. I wrote an article, or was interviewed for an article for her a couple of years ago, and she's now asked me to guest write an article, which I'm honored and thrilled about. To kind of research for that, I said, look, Carly, I'm passionate about capital projects, but I don't necessarily know what people want to talk about or what people want to read. So I went out to individuals within the industry that were focused on projects and said, what do you want to hear about? What's interesting to you? What we noticed is that there is a massive disconnect between individuals on the project team and their day-to-day work versus the mining company board of directors, the individuals that are responsible for sanctioning projects, funding projects. There's just a disconnect. So the idea behind the article is to write from a project manager standpoint, what would you want your board of directors to know so that we can put that information out front and say, this is what we as project people think boards should know, with the hope that anyone from a board could read that and say, oh, maybe I haven't looked at it from that vantage point or that perspective, and they can gain some insight. And that's been a lot of fun for me, because project managers are passionate people. So when you go out and you ask them what it is that they see as the disconnect, they're more than willing to share, their opinions and what areas they'd like to see board members focus on.
That's an exciting article. I can't wait to read it, because that's the thing too, right? Is that you're at the high level, you're trying to make educated and informed decisions to then, pass off the next project or get into the next initiative. And if you only get the highlighted or glorified Cole's notes of what occurs, you're not necessarily making the decisions based on facts. You're just making a decision on the pot of flowers that were delivered to you, kind of thing, right? So if you get a lot more of that perspective directly from the project teams, it'd be exciting to see how that's received and what the transformation would be on future projects.
Yeah, fair enough. And you're right. And look, the intent isn't to bash a board or to even bash a project manager for that standpoint. But if you go across the board of directors for major mining companies, the composition of individuals is folks that are focused on finance, social, environmental, securities, operations, which is all very necessary and good. However, there's not a lot of emphasis, or not a lot of folks that are capital development project people. And because of that, the focus is different. The experience is different. And one of the folks I was chatting to is like, I wish my board knew that a concentrator isn't just a concentrator. Just because somebody built a concentrator down in Mexico for, whatever, 100 million, doesn't mean you can turn around and go do the same thing in Ghana. Like Mexico and Ghana, big difference between geographies, workforce, you name it. So a concentrator is not just a concentrator.
I'm looking forward to it. Sorry, go ahead, Eric.
It'd be an interesting article, because I'd love to hear kind of both perspectives. You're talking about, the maybe the struggles in the field or at the face. But the flip side article as well, where you're getting the board's perspective, because a lot of times I would suspect they don't have the level of detail that we have and are faced with day to day in the field when we're on that project. So definitely be an interesting opportunity to take the lens the other way and allow yourself to do that, not like you said, Jason, not from being critical of, but just put yourself in the shoes for a minute.
Absolutely. Yeah. No judgment, no criticism, for sure. It's both sides, Eric. You're absolutely right. And how do we find the common denominator so that people can look at it objectively and make ultimately the right investment decision for the business and their shareholders?
Yeah.
An interesting interview I had, Jason, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this one, is like over the past couple of weeks, we've been interviewing a lot of different stakeholders that we have coming across our projects, and like using our, leveraging our solution and things like that. And it was funny because our director of sales, he went through the interview and he goes, I didn't think that the C-suite cared or went down into the weeds like they just illustrated. Okay. And then the feedback was, we never had access.
Oh, interesting.
Right? So he's like, all we had before was a series of dashboards. That's all that was provided to us. Now that we have access to more information, we can come with a much, much better understanding of what's going on. And when we go do coaching and mentoring or visits in the field, we have direct insight of what occurred there, and we can have a more informed conversation directly. So it was just, I think it plays well into the article that you're writing, because it was like, people make decisions based on what they know and based on how everything occurs to them, right? So if all they have is a series of dashboards and they don't have all of the backup behind it, dashboard tells me we're going to make these decisions and away you go, right? So sometimes we like to point fingers, like, to Eric's point, like everybody wants to do the right thing and everybody wants to win the day, but they're coming at it from a different series of information. And then somehow we don't understand why there's disconnect, right?
And I think that's a huge advantage of the solution that you provide too, is that increased visibility to the executive, to the C-suite. So shout out to you and your solution for providing that to people.
Well, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. So as we close things off, Jason, round 2 with Jason Fearnow, what are some closing remarks, or what are the things that you want to leave our audience with as far as maybe even a call to action personally?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I'd say anybody who's interested in the human science, human skills side of things, hit me up, DM me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to chat with you about, some opportunities there and what we can do to help. But I'm curious, I didn't get a chance to ask you guys a question. Like, what are you seeing in the industry, and what's changed in the last couple of years from where you guys are standing?
I'll let you answer that one, Eric.
From what perspective, Jason?
I don't know. What trends or changes or experience have you had that have been different over the course of the last couple of years? Are you seeing anything that's encouraging to you?
Yeah, I think what's encouraging to me is the workforce for us, the engagement and the willingness to share their story. So we've Technica has adopted Sophie now for several years. We've gone to all employees, and that would have been right around the time that we met the first time, Jason. And since then, the adoption and like the people's, how engaged and how meaningful their work is, and their desire to share that with people, their willingness to share, and at the same time, like to Gus's point around the C-suite being able, even the managers are super, people engaging with the content and wanting to know more, being curious about the work. And there's been probably a really big shift around not so much a focus on what's being done wrong or what the wrong conditions are. Like, hazards are still being reported, incidents are being reported, but there's this definite change in culture and the feeling of like pride when you're walking in and you're highlighting all the good things that you used to walk by and not focus on and not talk about and not recognize. The impact and the difference that makes on the day-to-day is immeasurable. Like right now it's what we call the fall trend. So we've identified over several years of, it was a feeling at first, and now it's become this thing that we actually see it in the numbers. Is as we get into our fall, you tend to start to see the incidents start creeping up, right? And the severity of the incidents is going up, and we're living it now. And then what's true in that is I can go back and look at the data, and I can tell you that the positive recs is kind of slipped a little bit. The things that we do on the day-to-day are, maybe not done to the degree that we want. And so just bringing that energy back and being able to recognize that, and that people have that ability to see that now. It's something we know, and we can actually point to it. We can go, we know we need to go do. And just put the diggers on and go get it done, because we know what we need to do is being intentful and being in the workplace and, having meaningful conversations.
I would say that a trend that I picked up over the past couple of years that feeds off of that as well is because the contractor space has really taken charge significantly on innovation, right? They have a little bit more flexibility on shifting the direction of the ship, if you will. We've now seen in the contracting space different bonus payout criteria.
Okay.
Right? We've always paid bonus based on bolts, buckets, tons, like all these things. So shifting that criteria a little bit, what does that do based on the engagement of the workforce? We've also seen a lot, like I know I personally have seen it, a lot of conversations where now we've got mine operators that are actually visiting contractors to see how they do their work, to possibly reinvigorate or adjust how they deliver things on the operations side, which if you would have asked me 10 years or 12 years ago when I started the mining space if that was going to be a thing, I would have said absolutely not. But it is something that is very, very much happening today, and I'm seeing it where, especially because being a solutions provider, and I'm sure you're no different. People ask you like, well, where have you succeeded somewhere else, right? And then you say, well, I've done this and I've done that, and if you want, I can set up an introduction. So I've got the front seat to the whole thing, if you will. But just having that feedback from an operator saying, hey, we recognize that there's an opportunity for us to improve, and we recognize that contractors are a little bit more nimble, and they've probably tried and failed and succeeded faster and they've been able to iterate on how to do things. So let's just go see what they're doing. And that part of it has been super exciting for me to watch in particular, because it's just not something that I saw coming if you would have asked a decade ago. And I'm sure you're probably thinking the same thing.
Total paradigm shift. Yeah, total paradigm shift. But I think for good reason. Why not go ask contractors who have a track record of delivering what they're doing different than what you're doing from an operations perspective? So yeah, 10 years ago, that kind of stuff wasn't happening. At least not, I didn't see it. I do see it now. Like you, I do see it too, which is really good.
Well, I think this was a pretty cool recap and a follow-up to our last conversations, being that there was somewhat of a pipe dream, right? That was kind of brewing, and that we're actually seeing light at the end of the tunnel, and things are shifting. And I think the three of us are pretty excited about that. And I thank you again, Jason, for spending some time with us and sharing your story and how you've progressed over the past couple of years. And I always look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, man. No, like I said, I really appreciate you guys asking me to be back. It's always energizing for me to hear from you guys what's going on, but then to also speak about things I'm passionate about. So I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to do that and to catch up with you guys who I respect as well.
Well, thanks a lot, Jason. Really appreciate it. Appreciate your time and love the passion. So let's keep going.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
So for everybody listening, if you enjoyed the content and you enjoyed the conversation, please don't hesitate, send some comments below so we can hear your remarks. And if you want to have updates for future shows, just go ahead and ring that bell with a YouTube channel, as well as you can follow us on LinkedIn with the Change Itself channel. And looking forward to the next conversation. Thanks a lot, everyone.